Hey guys, Castar here with another deck profile. This deck profile video is going to be on one of my favorite decks, Tachikaze. I know I have one up already for the Raptor series Ride Chain. It's a little old. Came out with it right after set 9, I think, came out. The stuff was in set 8, but I didn't start making videos until around set 9. So this is basically everything from Tachikaze up until now is into this deck. I have a new deck that is based on it's full Ancient Dragons. You will see builds for Ancient Dragons with Dark Rex as the other grade 3, but I think after playtesting it a lot, it's kind of silly actually, and it just takes too much to set up. Ancient Dragons can't handle that type of setup. It's a very brute force power heavy deck that needs to be as simple as possible. I'm not going to do a video on my Ancient Dragons, full Ancient Dragon tier list deck, so I'm just going to tell it to you right now. Like I said, I run all Ancient Dragon cards, except for the Perfect Guards. The Perfect Guards I run are Archbirds just because I already had them and they're cheaper. Baby Rex is the starter. I'm just going to mention the main cards that are mentionable in the deck that help the combo. The Ancient Dragon Baby Rex, when you retire him, you counterblast 1, and you call Tyranno Legend from the deck, who's the other main grade 3. Pretty good for just calling a card and getting an early rush, especially since it basically defies the calling nothing higher than your Vanguard rule, especially if you can get it off as early as possible. I think that the best way to do it is to go ahead and get that Tyranno out there as quick as you can so that you can make most effective use of that skill. I run 3 copies of the 10k attacker grade 1, 4 perfects, 3 copies of Gatling Garo, the 12k attacker grade 1 that you retire an Ancient Dragon card when it attacks and it gains +5 for that turn. And then I run 4 copies of Iguana Gork. He's basically a more powerful version of Skype Tarot that when he's retired, period, he's a 7k, you counterblast 1, and then you can place him anywhere on the field. So he works pretty much like Skype Tarot, except for the fact that he doesn't go back to hand, he goes back to the field directly, so he allows for some combos if you set everything up right. For grade 2s, at the 10k vanilla, I run at 4. I got 4 Biamanculos. That's the 12k attacker, and then I have 3 copies of Dano Claude. He's exactly like Gatling Garo, except he's a 14k attacker when you retire an Ancient Dragon card to give him +5k. Great with Iguana Gork behind him because A, you can retire Iguana Gork and get that extra +5 and call it back, or you can hit for 21k column and retire something else. Grade 3s, I run Spinodriver. He's the Break Ride. I'm not going to explain him now because you'll see him again in this deck. And then I run Ancient Dragon Tyranno Legend at 4 copies also. He's the main grade 3 that you Break Ride with. His skill is great because of the fact that it requires no counterblast, only retiring. Much similar to some Shadow Paladin cards that you guys may have seen. He has a special counterblast skill that gives him +5 for special counterblast to Ancient Dragons, but I think it's unnecessary. I never really have to use it, especially with Break Ride giving him 21k and then with his skill 31k. So his main skill for Tyranno Legend that makes the deck really hit hard, I actually like to use it after Break Ride, so that way I Break Ride, get the 21 hit, and then the next turn I get the 21 hit and I don't lose as many cards. You retire 3 Ancient Dragon cards when Tyranno Legend attacks, and he gains +10,000 in extra critical, making him 21k crit. Like I said, you can do Break Ride, which gives you a 10k in crit also along with that, and hit for 31k 2 crit, which would be 3 damage. But I feel like that's unnecessary because at that point in the game, if you're hitting for something they can't guard well, they're just going to perfect guard it, whether it's 21 or 31. Either way, it's still 2 10k shields or 3 10k shields, which is way too much to guard with unless you have the option to and you just have that many cards in hand. So Ancient Dragons is a pretty good deck, very fierce, very tough. hits hard consistently, but in my opinion, it's not as good as this deck. This deck combines everything that Tachikaze has to offer. Some Ancient Dragon stuff and a lot of old school stuff. So taking a look at grade 0s, my starter, I start off with Dragon Egg, which most of you guys probably haven't seen since BTO2. To remind you guys of his skill, when he is put into the drop zone from rear guard, if you have Tachikaze Vanguard, you pay the cost, which is Counterblast 1, and put him back in your hands. So you start off by riding him and putting him back anywhere on rear guard, sit on him until you get the skill that you need to retire him, then you put him in hand and gain hand advantage with shield. This deck, in my opinion, generates hand advantage the best. It's the best tanking deck that I have seen in the game so far. Oracle Think Tank, prediction, and cards in hand is nice, but it's a lot of costly stuff and it's hard to set up and it's not powerful. Genesis is slightly more powerful and can put cards in hand, but you gotta have the soul for it, and it's very gimmicky. This deck is quick, simple, easy, and as soon as you get to grade 3 the next turn, you've got cards in hand, multiple cards in hand. So for trigger setups, I've run 4 heals, 7 crits. I forgot to mention earlier, my Ancient Dragon deck, I run all crits just to put the pressure up. Then I got 5 draws, because you do want to draw a lot in this deck if you can. I feel like 6 crits, 6 draws is just a little too many draws. And so that way the 5 draws, 7 crit just puts it at just where you need it, so that way you can get the draws that you want and then still not lose pressure with critical triggers. Looking at grade 1s, my setup is a little weird, but you'll see how it combos as I unfold the rest of the deck. Start off with 3 Sonic Noahs, vanilla grade 1, try to ride it if possible. Unfortunately, I usually end up riding this guy, which is Archbird. 4 copies of him, he's my perfect card. And if at all possible, I mulligan back to try and never ride Winged Dragon Skeptero, because he's very important. You counterblast 1, and when he's put into the drop zone, you put him back in your hand. He works just like Dragon Egg. And lastly, I run 4 copies of Ironclad Dragon Shieldon. He's the 6k grade 0 that, like you see in most trial decks that have a starter that doesn't retreat. He's the non-retreating starter. I run him because of the fact that my grade 2 lineup runs Blytops, who fetches him. And like I said, this is a hand advantage deck, so he's basically just a 10k guarding beat stick. He's a 10k shield, just guard with him like crazy, fetch him any way possible. If you get him in your opening hand, you can hold on to him if everything's perfect. But I usually prefer to shuffle him back anyways, because unless you're having a really bad game, you're not really going to damage check him and you'll just fetch him later. So that's it for the grade 1s. Pretty simple lineup, like I said. The only thing that's weird is running those 4 extra grade 0s, but it never hurts you at all. Looking at grade 2s, I run 4 copies of Ancient Dragon Creolifall. He's the 10k vanilla beat stick for the Ancient Dragon tier. I run 3 copies of Ravenous Dragon Mega Rex, more 10k beaters, just so that I have guards on the front of the field to constantly hit with, especially since I have mainly low-powered boosters. The only booster that I have that's that makes up for that is the vanilla 8k booster, Sonic Noah. And then, like I mentioned a second ago, I run 4 copies of Assault Dragon Blytops. His skill is that when he is put into the drop zone from rear guard, you may counterblast 1 and search for Ironclad Dragon's Shieldon, reveal it to your opponent, and put it into your hand and then shuffle. So again, as you can see, with the mechanic of this deck, so far it's a lot of putting cards back in hand or finding cards with high shielding, like Shieldon, and putting it in hand with skills that retire stuff on your field. So you're losing cards, but not really. You're more so gaining cards back. For my grade 3s, I run 4 copies of Assault Ancient Dragon Spinodriver, the break ride for the clan. And then I run 4 copies of Destructive Dragon Dark Rex. I'll go over the break ride skill first. His secondary skill for gaining plus 2k is really backwards. When he attacks, if the number of rear guards you have is more than your opponent, he gains plus 2k, so he's not going to beat a 13k attacker for you most of the game because of the fact that you are retiring stuff on your field to gain certain effects or put it back in hand. You choose 2 of your Tachikaze rear guards and retire them for his break ride skill. And when a Tachikaze rides this unit, if you pay that cost, you get to draw 2 cards, so you don't lose anything, and especially if you comboed it with Blytops or Skype Terror or Dragon Egg, you plussed your hand already majorly. And then you gain plus 10k in a critical, so ideal situation is to break ride Spinodriver with another Spinodriver, so that way you get that 21k hit. And then you can possibly break ride again next turn, or combine it with Dark Rex's skill to break ride a second time during the turn that you're still attacking. So again, you're already seeing the mechanic of retiring other cards on the field and then putting them back in hand, or putting other things in hand and then getting that draw 2, so you really get 4 cards in hand instead of just getting the 2 to make up for the fact that you gain that 10k crit for retiring 2. Destruction Dragon Dark Rex, secondary skill is activate from hand. You bind him, and then you choose a Tachikaze unit, and it gains plus 3,000. That's what you're going to use to set up for his main limit break skill, which is activated from the bind zone. So you do that when you're setting up as soon as you can. Really do that. I prefer not to ride him unless I'm just not getting any grade 3s that turn. So try not to ride him if at all possible. His limit break is that you retire 3 Tachikaze rear guards, and at the beginning of the close step of the battle that your grade 3 or greater Tachikaze Vanguard attacked, and the attack did not hit during that battle, you may pay the cost if you do ride this unit. So basically, if you break ride with Spinodriver, you got the 10k crit, plus anywhere from 2 to 4 cards. You attack with everything, then attack with Vanguard. Usually they're at 4 to 5 damage at this time, so you force them to block it, especially because of the crit. And then that forces them to take Dark Rex's skill, break ride again, and then you've got 3 cards to retire, and then you retire 2 cards, gain another 10k crit, and then draw 2. So again, you combine this with your other skills to retire it, and then put it in hand or put other things in hand. And then you're gaining, again, besides the cards from Twin Drive, which is 2, you're gaining, again, 2 to 4 cards. And then you get a second Twin Drive. So combining both break rides along with both Twin Drives, say you got all your skills off properly, you gain 12 cards in a turn. So, very nice. Once you do this, even if you only get to break ride with Spinodriver, you're pretty much set up for the rest of the game. Nobody's really going to get past your hand or be able to keep up with it, especially since late game you're looking at anywhere from 3 to 5 cards in your hand. It's slowly dwindling as you have to deal with your opponent's relentless attacks. The ideal situation, like I said, doesn't always happen. But it's best to try and hold out for it if you can, maybe. If not, don't worry about it. Go ahead and ride Spino or break ride with Spino, or break ride with Dark Rex if you have no choice. But I would suggest not break riding with Dark Rex from hand, but doing it from the bind zone. So that way you get the extra 2 cards, at least from the Twin Drive. The only thing I will say is that the important thing about playing this deck is when you're going for the ultimate finish with Spino twice, to break ride twice, and then Dark Rex, you have to make sure to call a full field of cards for the effect, especially since you know your opponent's likely going to have to take it at that point, because if you're not thinking and you don't do it, you can completely screw up the entire mechanic of the deck at that point. It hurts to call triggers and stuff, but if that's all you have to do it, and just think about the fact that since you're gaining so many cards, you're going to get it all back anyways, even though you're dropping it at the time. It's a great deck. It plays very heavy competitively. I really haven't lost any with this deck except for the couple of times that I just got screwed over and got grade stuck or something like that really only happens by accident every once in a while, or from bad shuffling just because the deck's been played too much. So that's the end of the video. I hope you guys like the deck. I really hope you guys play it. It's a very, very cheap version of the Tachikaze deck. The only card in there that's really worth a lot is Spinodriver, and that's just because he's still about like $8 to $10, I think. So like, subscribe below, comment on the deck or the video or anything, letting me know anything that you'd like to see me do, any deck builds you'd like to see me make, or videos of decks you'd like to see play against each other, or tutorials on how to play or anything like that.